Everyone assumes that being confident, independent, and unbothered by social pressure would make life easier. After all, if you don't need constant validation, don't care what people think, and can handle things on your own, shouldn't that be the biggest advantage in the world? But here's the brutal reality that nobody talks about. Operating outside the normal social framework actually creates a whole set of challenges that most people never have to deal with. While everyone else is following predictable social scripts and getting predictable results, Sigma males are constantly dealing with misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and situations where their natural behavior works against them. Society is built for people who play by certain unspoken rules: networking for career advancement, small talk for relationship building, and social games for fitting in. When you refuse to participate in these systems, you don't just miss out on the benefits. People actively work to make your life harder because they can't understand why you won't just conform like everyone else. They'll block your opportunities, spread rumors about you being difficult, and even sabotage your efforts simply because your independence threatens their need for everyone to play the same game. The independence and authenticity that define Sigma males come with a price that's rarely discussed. While other personality types can rely on social support systems, established hierarchies, and group dynamics to navigate challenges, these men often find themselves facing life's difficulties completely alone. Here's why life is unfairly harder for Sigma males than for any other personality type. Number 1. They're often labeled the black sheep for thinking differently. The fastest way to become an outsider in any group is to ask why when everyone else is saying yes. Human beings have this weird habit of turning anyone who questions the norm into the problem, even when the questions are perfectly reasonable and could actually improve things for everyone. Sigma males become automatic targets because they can't help but notice when systems don't make sense or when people are following traditions, just because that's how we've always done it. They're not trying to cause trouble or be difficult. Their brain just works differently and sees inefficiencies that others ignore or accept without question. At family gatherings, they become the one who thinks too much or always has to complicate things. At work, they're labeled as difficult employees even when their suggestions could save time and money. In social groups, they're seen as the ones who don't know how to just go with the flow and have fun. The black sheep label sticks because most people find it easier to blame the person asking questions than to examine whether their answers actually make sense. It's a defense mechanism that protects the comfort of the majority while punishing anyone who dares to think outside the accepted boundaries. Society has always been uncomfortable with people who refuse to fit into neat categories. As Seth Godin observed, the problem with the race to the bottom is that you might win. Sigma males refuse to participate in that race, which automatically makes them stand out in ways that threaten people who prefer everyone to think and act the same way. Number 2. They tend to suck at sugarcoating uncomfortable truths. One of the most valued skills in modern society is the ability to lie politely. People spend years learning how to deliver bad news without hurting feelings, how to disagree without creating conflict, and how to criticize without seeming mean. It's considered basic social intelligence that separates civilized people from those who lack proper manners. Sigma males understand this game perfectly and can play it when necessary, but they hate the waste of time and energy it requires. They can absolutely deliver sugar-coated messages and navigate delicate social situations with proper etiquette, but doing it repeatedly for every simple truth feels exhausting and pointless. Their frustration comes from having to wrap obvious solutions in layers of emotional packaging just to make other people comfortable with reality. They can spend 10 minutes carefully introducing a 5-second fix, but they'd rather skip the performance and get straight to solving the actual problem. This creates issues because while they're perfectly capable of social politeness, they don't see the point of using it constantly for basic logical discussions. When they see a clear problem with an obvious solution, having to pretend it's complicated or sensitive feels like a massive waste of everyone's time. Society has trained people to value comfort over truth, which puts anyone who prioritizes honesty at a serious disadvantage. Sigma males aren't trying to hurt anyone, but they've always hated wasting time sugarcoating uncomfortable truths just because people need everything wrapped in a pretty package. As Mark Twain noted, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. But he forgot to mention that truth-telling can cost relationships with people who prefer comfortable lies. Number 3. They are more likely to be loners. Dating apps are flooded with millions of people. Social media connects us to everyone we've ever met, and we have more ways to meet new people than any generation in history. Yet somehow, most people struggle to find genuine compatibility and end up settling for relationships that feel good enough rather than truly fulfilling. Now imagine trying to find compatibility when you represent less than 1% of the population. The math alone makes it incredibly difficult. If most people struggle to find their perfect match among common personality types, what are the odds of finding someone who truly gets you when your way of thinking is statistically rare? The challenge isn't about lacking social skills or being unable to connect with people. Sigma males can get along fine with most people for work, casual friendships, and everyday interactions. The issue comes when looking for deeper connections with people who understand their values, appreciate their perspective, and don't try to change their natural way of being. Today's world is full of surface-level connections where people bond over shared interests or similar backgrounds, but genuine compatibility requires something much deeper. Finding someone whose mind works in a way that complements yours. When your thinking patterns are uncommon, that kind of match becomes extremely rare. Most people can join groups, try online dating, or meet people through friends, and eventually find someone who clicks with them. But when you're wired differently from 99% of the population, traditional methods of meeting compatible people just don't work the same way. The result isn't choosing to be alone. It's refusing to settle for connections that feel empty just to avoid being by yourself. Number 4. They are misunderstood or mislabeled by society. Modern society runs on labels and categories that help people quickly understand each other and know how to interact. Introvert or extrovert, leader or follower, team player or individualist. These shortcuts work fine for most people who fit clearly into recognizable patterns, but they create serious problems for anyone who doesn't match the available options. The labeling system fails completely when it encounters people whose behavior doesn't fit standard categories. They get called antisocial for being selective about social interactions, arrogant for trusting their own judgment, or unambitious for not caring about traditional success markers. None of these labels are accurate, but once they stick, they influence how others treat them. These constant mislabelings create a frustrating cycle where they have to repeatedly explain or defend their natural behavior to people who've already decided what type of person they are. It's mentally exhausting to be consistently misunderstood by people who think they've figured you out after limited observation. The mislabeling affects real opportunities because people make important decisions about jobs, friendships, and relationships based on their wrong assumptions rather than actual character assessment. A manager might skip over someone for leadership roles because they are low-key, even though they're perfectly capable when the situation calls for it. This forces an impossible choice between constantly correcting people's misconceptions or accepting being viewed through the wrong lens, both of which drain mental energy that could be used for more productive purposes. As Oscar Wilde observed, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." But society often punishes authenticity when it doesn't match familiar patterns that people understand and expect. Number 5. They unintentionally intimidate nearly every other personality type. Confidence is supposed to be attractive and inspiring, but there's a type of quiet self-assurance that makes other people nervous without any obvious reason. It's not aggressive behavior or arrogant attitude. It's something more subtle that triggers insecurity in people who rely on external validation to feel good about themselves. Alpha personalities feel threatened because they encounter someone who doesn't compete for dominance, but also doesn't submit to it, which breaks the power dynamics they understand and rely on. Beta personalities feel inadequate because they see a level of independence that highlights their own need for constant approval and direction from others. Even confident people can feel unsettled because this type of self-assurance doesn't come from the usual sources like social status, wealth, or group approval. When people can't figure out where someone's confidence comes from, it makes them question their own foundation and wonder what they might be missing. This intimidation factor creates problems in work environments where collaboration requires people to feel comfortable sharing ideas and disagreeing with each other. When team members feel intimidated, they hold back their contributions, which can make Sigma males seem unapproachable even when they're making real efforts to be inclusive. The unfairness is that this intimidation is completely unintentional. They're not trying to make anyone feel small or inadequate, but their natural way of being triggers insecurities in people who haven't developed their own internal confidence. As Eleanor Roosevelt noted, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, but many people give that consent automatically when they meet someone who seems more secure than they feel. Number 6. They struggle to find people who truly get them. The human brain is designed to seek out people who think similarly and share common values, but what happens when your way of thinking is statistically rare? Most personality types can find their tribe relatively easily through shared interests, backgrounds, or life experiences, but some people operate on such a different frequency that finding genuine understanding becomes like searching for a needle in a haystack. Sigma males can handle basic social interactions just fine. They're not antisocial or unable to communicate. The challenge comes when they want to discuss ideas that actually matter to them, share their real thoughts about complex topics, or connect with someone who understands why they approach life differently than most people. The majority of society operates on emotional reasoning, group consensus, and social expectations that feel foreign to people who prioritize individual logic and authentic personal values. When Sigma males try to explain their life choices or perspectives, they often get blank stares or defensive reactions from people who interpret different as wrong. This intellectual isolation becomes exhausting because humans naturally need some level of understanding and connection. While others can easily find people who share their worldview, Sigma males often go years without meeting someone who truly gets their perspective on life. The rarity of genuine understanding forces them to either settle for surface-level relationships or keep their deeper thoughts to themselves, both of which can feel incredibly lonely even when surrounded by people. As Albert Einstein once said, "The person who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd," but he didn't mention how isolating it can be to walk a different path entirely. If this hit home, don't just scroll, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. Remember, being different isn't a curse, it's your greatest power. Stay sharp, stay Sigma.